All right, this lesson is on solving proportions. So first of all, a proportion is an equation. That means there's an equal sign that states that two ratios are equal. So it's just a ratio equal to a ratio. So in a proportion, if you have an unknown, a variable, I'm going to show you how to solve for that in two different ways. So the first way is using the multiplication property. And in this method, basically you're just going to solve this just like you would solve an equation. So to get the m by itself, this is m divided by 12, I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 12. So both sides of the equation by 12. Over here, these 12s simplify to 1 and 1, so they cancel each other out. Over here, I can simplify the 12 and the 8. They have a common factor of 4, so that would be 3 and 2. And so I would end up, and when I multiply straight across, I would end up with 21 halves. This is an m, by the way. So m equals 21 halves, or 10.5. All right, so that's using the multiplication property. The next method is the method that I prefer and that I would recommend. And it's using the cross products. And so there's this property that exists with proportions that the cross products are always equal to each other. So A times D is equal to B times C. And so we can use that property to help us solve for an unknown in a proportion. So if I come down here, I know 4 times x is equal to 8 times 3. This is always true in a proportion. So 4x equals 24. It's just a one-step equation. Divide both sides by 4, and x equals 6. That's all there is to it. Okay, so let's look at one that's a little more complicated. All right, so I'm going to look at the cross products here. So I have b minus 8 times 4. Now the important thing when I write this is it's 4 times this whole thing. So I have to write it as 4 times, in parentheses, b minus 8. Excuse me. And the same thing with this cross product. It's 5 times, in parentheses, b plus 3. So now I have a multi-step equation with variables on both sides. So the first step is to distribute here. So I'm going to distribute, and I'm also going to distribute on this side. So 4 times b is 4b, minus 4 times 8 is 32. 5 times b is 5b, plus 5 times 3 is 15. Now I want to get the variables on the same side. So to get rid of this 4b, I can subtract it from both sides. Or I can get rid of the 5b and subtract it from both sides. If I subtract 5b, I'm going to end up with, excuse me, negative 1b over here. If I subtract 4b, I'll end up with positive 1b. I would rather choose the one that gives me a positive value. So I'm going to subtract 4b from both sides. Now be careful, this minus sign belongs to the 32. It doesn't just disappear. So 5b minus 4b is 1b. We don't need to write the 1. Now I just have a one-step equation. Subtract 15 from both sides. So negative 32 minus 15 is negative 47. And just flip that around. B equals negative 47. All right, one more thing. Let's look at a word problem involving proportions. So the big thing when you're setting up a word problem is that the units have to match up. What I mean by that is if I'm comparing trees to frogs, remember, ratio is a comparison of two numbers. This side of the proportion also has to be trees to frogs. So you have to compare the same things on both sides of the proportion. So in this word problem, we're comparing the gigabytes of storage in a media player to the number of songs. So what we're looking at is gigs to songs. So when I set up my proportion, both sides of the proportion need to be set up that way. So the first media player has 2 gigs of storage and it holds 500 songs. The other media player has 80 gigs and I don't know how many songs it can hold. And so there's my proportion. So we'll use the cross product here. Remember, the cross products are equal, so 2 times x equals 80 times 500. So 80 times 500 equals 40,000. Divide both sides by 2. Sorry, I just wanted to double check that answer. Divide both sides by 2, just like solving a one-step equation. And x equals 20,000 songs. And that's it. So proportions are really useful and really easy. So hopefully that was helpful to you. If so, give it a like and a subscribe, and feel free to leave me a comment. Until next time.